thank you, Rebecca, for coming. Thank you, Cork Mamas, for being here. And I love having women who are, I like to use this new adjective of mine, birthy. Like, I love being around birthy women.
I'm going to ask, can I ask a question? With your postpartum doula stuff, where do you guys, like what week or how long do you work with your moms on average postpartum?
I work 2 days to 10 weeks.
Okay. Is that what the training is? More or less?
It's just the first 3 months
Okay.
postpartum.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Great.
Yeah, a
And
lot of
then
flexibility.
it sort of morphs, I think, into nannyism.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, depending on if mom's needs are high, you know.
Right. Totally.
Mhm.
I get
Mom's
it.
postpartum needs, but like I had a mom who had a 5 or 6 month old and was looking for someone while she goes to the gym.
Yeah.
That's not really, I
Mhm.
think.
Yeah.
It'd be nice for
It's a different
hourly
service.
paid.
Yeah, seriously.
But not the right job.
Yeah.
No, we do a night support as well.
That's
Okay.
true.
So that is something that we do carry beyond that 3-month piece.
Yeah.
Especially moms are like, I'm about to lose my mind.
Yeah.
Then we come in and then provide some night support and let them get some sleep.
Yeah. I find it fascinating when we look at like statistics. So my friends out in LA, I've been in the last year, so I'm Rebecca. And I have been on a whirlwind tour for the last 2 years of my life, more or less, trying to create this business around postnatal health, which if any of you ever get Goop, like the blog, a few months ago there was this article called Postnatal Depletion, and it definitely went around and went viral on the internet, and I got like 6 emails that day from my cohort of people. And it was all about how with some studies that they put together that we noticed that, as in some of you that have 10-year-olds might know this, that it really takes the body and the whole, like the body, the spirit, everything, 10 years to recover from having babies and giving birth and all the sleep deprivation and all that kind of stuff. So it's been that article was for sort of verification this year that this work that I'm doing is going to build momentum over time and is going to become like a new way of caring for women. And I still have some uphill battles, not uphill battles. I'm an ultramarathon runner too, so I like think of uphill climbs as they can either be good swift hikes, especially at the beginning of like a 50-mile race, but somewhere in the middle you're like, good Lord, what happened to
What am I
me?
doing?
I was like, I have all these spirit guides push me up the mountain. You're like, that was like my first race or whatever, but still like, there's like
Oh my gosh, yes.
but there's that moment where I have some of those uphills to climb. Still, I'm very aware. So I focus now on women's health 6 weeks to a year postpartum. And in that time frame, from what I'm seeing, and literally my observation is a very small cohort, and I will talk sort of statistically and then also like a dirt bag. So it'll be somewhere in the middle. But so I'm very real, and I'm sweating. I always sweat right here when I talk.
Oh, the Good Valley. Oh my gosh.
What can you do, right?
Totally understand.
And I won't be afraid to say that. But even if I love you all, I feel very comfortable in this circle. But what I noticed over time, as a midwife, I delivered in hospital, out of hospital, in births and home births, trailer parks, like whatever you could say. I've been there, and because when I got into midwifery, it was more of a service to wanting to always be a doctor, wanting women to be empowered. And so my other background, I was telling Donna my story, is that I went to Prescott College after being at DU, being totally pre-med, and I got into like OChem, and we had some family upheaval, and I just lost my mind, and I was like, I want to go study Buddhism and Taoism and color photography.
OChem did that too.
Yeah,
I think it does that
I
to
remember
lots of
sitting
people.
for the first
No,
test.
I'm really proud of my daughter for getting an A in that class.
Seriously. But if I wouldn't have had a family breakdown, it might have been okay. But so I switched gears, but I always came back to healthcare and medicine and women's empowerment. Midwifery eventually became a really great model for me to transfer that energy and to still being able to do physiologic work, still be able to do the work of, the mix of the art of midwifery and the art of medicine, because I really do believe medicine can be an art. Yes. And then to also get to learn the advanced skills of, like what maternal mental health from great providers during our school, like all that kind of stuff that really I wanted to be able to care for women. And then I practiced, and I did, again, births everywhere in Montana, Oregon, Seattle, and Minnesota. And then I quit. And I quit because sort of the competition sort of the industry and the lack of pay, and then also just total deprivation, which would be parallel to what a woman who continuously gives birth is. You know, like if you're going to have 2 or 3 kids,
Absolutely.
your adrenals just get so pumped and depleted, and you get tired, right? It's like that chronic exhaustion. So I needed some time to repair. And in that repair, I was like, I'm going to go off and either get a CNM or I'm going to go get an MD, MPH. I'm sort of ambitious. and at 37, after a lot of different things. Yeah, right. And so I chose a bridge job between midwifery and what I'm doing now in a medical school to see what it would be like. And then, ironically, I got into the curriculum department, and I realized like what a lack of curriculum there was around like OB specifically, and was shocked in the sense that, and also so happy and relieved that I could say, okay, I'm not going to do that. You have enough tools and like the creativity part of it. Like I have the creative skills, I have the medical skills, the midwifery skills, the doula skills, like the emotional skills, all that stuff, and you can figure out something. So that was sort of me to where I am now. Is like, I can figure out something. So I figured this out. And I'm still working on figuring it out. But so now I worked for individually with women for the last about 2 years, coaching, and really just doing online clinical visits, more or less, but then also giving them time to express their emotional well-being and mental well-being, and being able to identify if they have like postnatal depression out at 8 months postpartum. So there's a lot more postnatal depression than we're identifying at this point, because we're only looking at a certain time zone, and we're only looking at certain numbers. And when we really do those studies, we're looking at like groups of, you know, 10,000 is a big study number, but it's not like when you look at the perspective of women giving birth and really checking in with women. If we could have kiosks where women could go, where like honest
happy
company,
face, sad face.
Right. You could just check in, and it could go to like somebody and say,
If it was this anonymous thing, I think you'd get so much
Yes.
more.
yeah. And I mean, and I keep pointing at you because you're the expert in it, and
I'm totally with you.
Yeah.
Because that's actually I've always seen and thought it had something to do with the adrenaline that comes early postpartum.
Yes.
That you can ride off of that, and at about 8-9 months, that's where you'll see that
right.
core depletion. I've
Yes.
seen it so many times.
Yeah.
And you're right. We're sort of
Yeah,
out
that's
of
great.
the.
Yeah.
People aren't looking at postnatal depression or anxiety
Yeah.
or any kind of mood disorder at that point.
No.
It's like too late, but it's not.
No.
I think it can continue to 2 years.
Well, and I think
Yeah.
I think in a lot of situations, and this is great for the I specifically think of when people say what's the difference between a midwife and a doula, I say, gosh, when I think about it, the emotional responsibility that you have as a doula is like number one to me. Because I would say, if anyone said to me as a midwife, oh, we have a doula coming, I would be like, sweet. That means for me, I could go sleep or do whatever I could do to manage the birth safely. Because I got stuff like cord prolapses, I got stuff like, 32-week fetal demises. Like, I got the challenges that midwives that can handle it get, or sometimes you get like no hemorrhages for 8 months, and you're like, this is awesome. Right. But whenever there was a doula around, I knew that if a woman hits a wall, she had someone to be talked down or up the wall and around the wall or over, like whatever way she was going to get through that wall and continue to have the birth that she was hoping to have or planning to have, or also the conversation to say, what if we have an asynclitic baby that might be too big for, there's all the kind of things that as an early doula I was like, oh, every baby's meant to fit. And I'm like, Now as a midwife, I'm like, not every baby's meant to fit. You know, like I have a handful of friends where they're like they weren't meant to fit through their android flat pelvises. So if I get too midwifery. This is why I'll have you guys ask questions. I know. And I feel like sometimes this is where it's so great to have people like me come in, and you eventually too, because you get such basic physiologic information in your doula training. From what I remember from my 2-night, I got to work with Gail Tully as my first teacher, which was a blessing. But so I learned everything about spinning babies from the out of the gate, and so she was also a midwife, so we got that, but you don't get that. And so I will open the platform to say too, because I don't want to keep talking so much, but when I work with people, and I think we're going to talk more about like a professional workshop, I will open the door to say, hey, email me if you're in labor. And if it's 2 a.m, I'm probably not going to email you back. But if you have questions while you're in labor, I'll get your emails and then put them on if you guys want to put them on like a birth professional email list from my website. But then also I just really do open the floor for you guys to touch base with me if you feel like you have a midwifery or like a question that could be answered by a physician that you guys can't get responded to easily.
Yeah.
I like to provide that
That's
because
huge.
they're pretty quick answers for the most part.
Are you still in the middle of that research?
I will always be in the middle of
Right.
my research, is what I've realized.
Yeah,
So
sure.
where I'm at now is I'm really funny, in the sense that, and I have a lot of humility, and I'm totally sweating still. But after working with women one-on-one, I realized that I was doing the same thing I was doing when I was a midwife, which I am born to serve. I'm a Capricorn. I could tell you all my
Is that
signs.
my problem?
Yes.
I didn't know.
Yeah, you're supposed your job is to point the way. So you're born to serve, and but it's a much bigger picture than that. But the older I get, the more comfortable I get in my skin. I'm like, this is just what I do the best. But the one-on-one thing always depletes me because I'm like, I want to go run a 100-mile race. I want to go, do
Bigger.
things that then will go back to adrenaline and cortisol and all that kind of stuff. You just it's tiring. So, and I wanted to make more of an impact. So I started pulling the research together because I write content a lot, and I have a weekly blog. I don't write daily, which I wish I could, but I don't. And I could pull all that. Well, the last time I flew here, I'm also ADD. So my stories go like this, but they come back together. I was on a trip out here to Christmas, and I had a stack of papers. My friends are from Every Mother Counts, and they sent me a big stack of research papers on postnatal depression, really. And so I was thumbing through them, and one was about this self-care kit. It was a study out of Chicago. And they have a center like this, but it's even more integrative, where they have doctors and it's bilingual, or probably quadlingual, probably when it comes down to it. But and they do acupuncture, chiropractor, medical care, midwifery care, doula care. They just have the best kind of center you can imagine for women's health. And they're super low income. And then yet there's this elite class that comes in because they want the care from Evanston, Illinois, or kind of those places in Chicago. And the study was looking at what happens to women when they give women a self-care kit at 6 weeks postpartum when they leave their clinical care. And so I was like, And so I just kept reading through it. And so the research said that when women, I don't remember the percentage, but when women go out with this self-care kit of education, not just, breast pads and nipple cream, but of an educational content self-care kit, that they are, 40% more likely to return to clinic and get advanced care from a nurse midwife that might be or a psychologist or an acupuncturist or whomever it is. Somebody just to say, hey, you're I need help. This is what this said to me. So I pulled together all my content and researched more and created more content and made these cards. And that's Little Mother's Helper now.
And
so
they're
that's
beautiful.
the
Yes.
designer I chose is just, I didn't choose her, I stalked her. And I have the stalking syndrome. When I really love something, I follow it sort of, I guess, like a fox.
Pam England, Birthing from Within, would love that. The stalker syndrome.
Yeah, she probably could.
Right?
She was that's the childbirthing or the childbirth education I used to do. So, what did you say?
Oh, I was just going to ask about the cards if you had any with you.
Well, I don't because they're not produced yet.
Okay.
They're on Kickstarter.
Okay,
So when you
cool.
say cards,
So I can show
I
you.
have my
Do
computer
you have
because
an
I wanted
iPad or
to. I wanted
something?
to show that.
So it will be a kit. So what I did basically, and you'll love, and keep pointing to you. I love having mental health people around in a conversation like this because you will offer so much value. So I address in my work so I'm very much midwifery model of care. Mental, emotional, spiritual, and what else?
Physical.
Heart. Yeah, physical. That body thing. Thanks. The blood, the heart, it pumps. And so cover those. And so there's 4 areas, and it's the mind, body, heart, and soul. And then the mind is all mental health stuff. At first, I was making it more Brené Brown, resilience, that kind of stuff. And I have 2 friends. One's a psychologist, one's a psychiatrist, and they were like, this is going to be a bigger thing that can go home from this birth center. It can go home from a hospital birth center. You got to tell women what's up with mental health issues, and we've got to stop beating around the bush. And I was like, I totally agree, because I will talk about that in certain parts of my writing. So I just went to town on that one and sat down in a room that is a room I don't occupy that much, and wrote for a weekend and pulled that together and made it. And then they reviewed it. So it's a very collaborative model. I've had it all peer reviewed by anyone from us to, to psychologists and doctors. So it's a really cool deck of cards that is 68 cards, or 58 cards at this point, on just physical well-being, mental, emotional, and then spiritual is a little bit smaller than I wanted to make it, but it's, right now I have an opportunity to have this, I have a hospital in Minneapolis looking at it for all their moms. They do, in their system, 10,000 births a year. Mm-hmm. And so if I can get this into their hands in the next year, that would be pretty impressive. And then we're looking to collect data with it and whatnot to see what we're looking at with postnatal health and how much these women really do return to the clinic if they need to, and then if it's effective or not. Because if it's not, then I need to find a different job.
Can we play the 3-minute video?
Oh,
would that be okay?
I'm drenched over here. Can you see
love
it through my
this
dress?
video.
Oh, take it out. You want to blush more.
We'll watch it. No, I'll sweat more if I drink more water. Give me coffee.
Can you guys see?
3 million women give birth in the United
right
States
tilt?
every year.
Okay.
That's good.
Nice boobs. Of those 3 million women, up to 20% will experience postpartum depression. The 80% oftentimes are overwhelmed with information, whether it comes from their clinics or books or whatever it is. The resources are massive. I've worked as a midwife for 8 years, and I've worked in women's health for 20 years. One common thread I saw was the lack of health care after women leave their OB or midwife at 6 weeks postpartum, and it's a crucial time. There's a lot of life change. There's a lot of spiritual changes that go on. There's a lot of mental changes that go on, and there's a lot of physical, bodily changes that go on. Because there's this void, I've been developing a tool called Little Mother's Helper. It's a deck of cards consisting of health information for mind, body, heart, and soul. It's a portable health companion for the postpartum period. Little Mother's Helper is really easy to use. On the front side of the cards, you'll see an illustration of what the card is talking about, and once you flip it over, you get all the information that you would need in a really succinct, clear manner. It's one of those things where if you have a question, there's this deck of cards on your coffee table. You can be like, oh, maybe she has the answer in there. We want you to tape them up to your mirror. You can put it on your bedside table. You could use them in order. You could pull one out one at a time if you just need a specific issue. So alongside of the cards, we are developing an app which helps us digitize the physical product, and then also allows us to go out and expand the app, so giving women more access to the community or giving women more information. This is Maddie. She's a genius.
What I do with my work is to help and improve the health and life of one mother, so that she will go out and help another mother who's struggling. And then you have 2 healthy moms in a community. And then those 2 women go out and they help, say, 4 more moms. So as you can see, there's this broad scope and wave of women getting stronger and healthier throughout communities. Bravo.
Yeah.
Thank you.
By backing Little Mother's Helper, you're joining me in supporting strong mothers, healthy families, and connected communities.
Snacks.
So the feedback we got was our video was not multicultural enough, and I was like, I know I'm in Minnesota, there's a lot of white people with red hair. I'm like, I'm so sorry. Like, it was one of those things, because my mom, again, is from East Texas, where she grew up with like 2 white people. And so it was a pretty humbling experience. But those are the cards, and they're, everyone's like, can you get them cheaply printed in Nepal or, wherever? And I'm like, no, because I keep thinking kids are going to find these things and put them in their mouth. Right. So they need to have some longevity. So we're doing that in Minnesota. But,
can I ask what gave you the idea of card form versus mother?
my brain is really weird. I read that study and I saw a self-care kit and immediately I saw cards. So I do. I think the fact that I have a learning disability and it's never been diagnosed, but I can tell you straight up, like, I have testing anxiety, all that kind of stuff. And I mean, sitting for my boards, I was like, ha 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 ha, and like, I'm a good test taker when it comes to taking a test in school, but it was like sitting in a room with 10 other smart women made me totally nervous. And fortunately I passed. My mom said I was from a different, she took the bar exam 7 times. So it's genetic. So it's our conversations. But yeah, I just thought, does anyone know Simone LeBlanc? Have you heard of her name? She makes these beautiful gift boxes out of like Southern California. And I thought, well, yeah, that makes sense, right? Like that makes sense to send to a mom in her immediate postpartum and say, here's a self-care kit.
Yeah.
We put some, some of Catherine's stuff in it. We'll put some do something like that. And I was like, we're missing education. So cards, again, we're missing education. So how can we do this education thing and then make it so that like women like you want to buy it? You know what I'm saying? So women like me want to buy it and make it fun. So I have a lot of young graphic designers in my life. I say that because I'm almost 40 and they're 30. So, and I just was like, who do I want to do this? And I had been stalking Maddie for a while, and one of my clients had her as their brand manager, or her as her, graphic designer. And I was like, can I get her email? And we met for coffee, and Maddie's brain just like went off. And so cards, I just think I don't know. I guess I love tarot cards, and I love
goddess cards.
Or just anything.
I was just wondering how you
It's so quick too. It's like something that's pretty on the coffee table.
Right.
And it
But tape it up to
invites
your
you to like
bathroom.
look through them.
Yeah,
While
and they're
you're
all
breastfeeding.
numbered, and they're actually so if there's a sequence to them, they're numbered and lettered. So they're like, because we have a second deck and we have like third deck coming and whatnot, but we're just trying to get this first one.
Right.
So the second one is for the core, pelvic floor, and like restoring breathing. So it's stuff that we're not doing readily. They're doing it in France, they're doing it in other places, and all that kind of stuff. So again, especially postnatal doulas, when you think about like what you're bringing to your clients too, it's that thing again, access to education where you don't have to. I love Aviva, I love Robin Lim, I love everybody out there, I love Sears, but it's like I don't want to dig through 3 books.
No.
I'm gonna be a mom later in life, and I don't want to dig through that much. I don't have time. And that's sort of where we're going. I definitely nurture women to not say I'm busy so much and say like ask how your heart is doing. Yeah, I guess it's a great question. It was just again, I see stuff like I see stuff and I gotta go with it. And then
you want to reach for it too, and so the book can feel a little bit,
You want to print off 50 pages of content for every postpartum client. And in Pam England talks, I just did her birth listening class.
Oh, okay.
And she talks about the gates that you go through for healing. And one of the gates is gratitude and relief. So it's one of the early gates. It's the second gate, and there's 9 to process through like birth trauma. And a lot of moms, like when we're talking to them at 6 weeks, they're still at that gate of relief and gratitude, which then they move out of that, and then they realize there's this deep trauma that's taken place. And there's no doula there because it's past that normal window. Yep. So this is huge.
Yeah, it is huge. And it's just, go ahead.
I was going to say in my birthing classes, whenever I talk, because we do the labyrinth, and the metaphor that you go into the labyrinth, you give birth, and that's the seed, and then when you come out, it's really tight. It's really tight, and so what they're doing is just surviving. They're just figuring out how to mother and how to be with their partner. But as they get further away from the birth, it takes a little more distance. And even just in my last series, when I said it can sometimes take 1 to 3 years to get back to a place where you feel like you're yourself again. And yourself is going to be different. You can't go through this rite of passage and not be completely transformed. But you're going to feel like you've got a handle on it a little bit more. Yeah. And the eyes go really big, and they get really, like, crap.
Intimidated.
I'm going to be happy I told you this. Right now it seems really scary, but you're not going to want to talk about your birth until you're like, I didn't even want to process my births until I was 7 months postpartum, and then I was ready. Because you're going through all the gates of, like, it's like pieces. And I love that you're going to carry this through, because moms start weaning at a certain time, and then they go through another depression, and they're like, what the hell's wrong with me? Here I am 10 months postpartum, and I'm still processing the birth that I tell her, because I was telling her last night. I was looking at her, and she was like listening.
We're all talking to each other.
But I was telling her about it, and I was like, God, there's still stuff about my experience that's still coming up for me. So it's not just birth trauma, but it's also like redefining who you are. And no mom
Yeah.
is ready for that
No.
immediately. And so they go out 6 weeks and they no longer have care. And then they're like, how do I get resources? What's wrong with me if I don't feel right? Why am I not bonding with my baby?
Right.
If I wean, why am I feeling so sad? And there's not a ton of resources out there.
And you don't really want to talk to your OB about it. Like, you, for the most part, I think you might feel like this is
Is
such a
that the right
touchy-feely
Yeah.
emotional issue, and that's
Well,
not the kind of questions.
didactically, unless they come to medical school like how I did, and like how Avila Ram has come to medical school, like these people coming to medical school didactically, they're not going to learn this stuff. So if they've never ever, if they've been Western medicine their whole entire life, they're truly going to be a surgeon.
Absolutely.
So what the beauty of the European healthcare system and any of the other healthcare systems is that they train their OBs as surgeons and to do their expertise, and they're amazing at gyne and they're amazing at OB. You know, like when you need the surgery or you need the complication, but then midwives do the rest.
Yes.
And what I think the cards really do is validate this room of professionals, for one thing. They validate the midwifery profession in the sense that it's like we've been doing this work for how many centuries and millennials and just I don't know, it's gonna be. I talk a lot about that's like a lot of the spiritual work I talk about in there is like I said this to the hospital last week. I was like, there is a card on medicine dreams, and they're like, medicine dreams? And I was like, yeah. So, I was like, you might want to pull that one, but like for some people, what I say about that is like literally it's when you go to sleep and whoever you pray to, whatever you talk to, whether it's spirit, God, like whatever it is, that we have the ability to go to sleep and say, I need a little help here. What can you give me a clearer dream or something like that? And, I threw that out on Instagram months ago, and the next day I got like 3 different emails or phone calls, or, like former clients and also just random emails being like, I tried it and X, Y, or Z, So I think validation of the transformation, because it's a huge, we don't.
But I just wonder when they're like you send them off at 6 weeks.
Yep.
And they have these cards, and it's like they may not be ready for everything right
Nope.
then.
That's why they're,
And that's what I love about the idea is that their cards, they're easy. As a mom, I wish I had more time to read.
Yeah.
I really do, but to have these little snippets.
Yep.
And then as an
And
instructor.
that intuitive pulling.
Yeah,
with the
totally.
etching.
Totally.
Yeah, like just.
But I don't know. I would think that even prenatally, they're not always ready to hear that the healing piece takes longer. They think physically and emotionally at 6 weeks they should be ready, and I really, I don't know.
What does more
as
trauma?
an aspiring doula, I'm like, I'm stepping into postpartum doula work, and I've seen like I go 2 weeks with the family, and they're like, okay, I'm ready for like the night nanny. And I'm like, but.
Yeah.
You're only 2 weeks postpartum. Like there's so much more. How do I step into that in the first weeks and set this stage for resources later on? Right?
What kinds of questions do you think we should be asking?
Well, I was going to say what I hear a lot too. Okay, so what I hear a lot coming kind of from other areas is in that conversation is really recognizing and talking to women that when you go through a major life transformation, you also go through grief, right? So there are 5 stages to grief. And what I've learned about grief, I've had my dad die. In 6 years, I've had my dad die, the love of my life die, and a lot of other weird, and then not only that, responsibility of midwifery, where we had a fetal demise. I've had a lot of that kind of trauma. And then at the same time, when you're part of hundreds and hundreds of births, you have that much joy, and then there's all this other good stuff in there.
But those tiny cracks.
Yeah, and so grief never shows up like they say it does in the books, right? It's like one day you're pissed off, the next day you're like, oh, I feel that, or whatever it is. So if you can befriend grief, and the concept of it, like in a book or any of that kind of stuff, this is not in the cards, and it could be. And then again, what I love about this, it's like a business plan. These cards are going to be a living, breathing organism, and they're going to be growing and changing as I get more experience with women. The common questions I get, are. The thread I see most is I'm exhausted, I'm depleted, I'm not having sex. I'm my body feels crap, I'm low energy, all that. Common things. That's 9 months postpartum. For the most part, that's what I'm hearing. And so, the way I approach that is I always will, I'll always discuss, clean eating with them. So I think in Colorado, you're in the land of like access to talk to people that know what clean eating means. I have my own version of it. I just got off the phone with a client yesterday that I was like, I go for an 85-15 kind of thing, because when a new, like a young, and I say young mom being that I look at women who give birth as much as a newborn as their baby is. So that's kind of, you can adopt that philosophy all you want to. And every time you give birth, you become a newborn again, because you have to realize what to do differently at each time you go at it. And that means you have to learn to change your diapers, your own diapers. You know, you have to learn to like get your body back. You have to learn how to eat, all that kind of stuff. So grief is huge, and the reality of what we know now, because of the lovely land of evidence, is there's a lot of ways to calm the nervous system. So I talk a lot about the nervous system in my life and in this work.
And what are some of your top recommendations for moms about calming the nervous system?
Eat clean, number one. So instead of like going for, go for coffee, because I love coffee, and every time I quit it, I'm like, I'm Cajun. I shouldn't be quitting coffee. This is cultural. You know? So, it's culturally.
You're really betraying your heritage.
I can feel my ancestors coming down and slapping my face. But they would never do that. Putting soap in my mouth, maybe. But eating clean, and again, 85-15 is my belief with that. So if you can get clean meat, and I'm also an advocate of clean eating in the sense of and getting protein if you need protein. If you're a vegan or whatever, do what you do. But, eliminating all the sugar, all the stuff that, I had an almond croissant this morning. I was like, let's see how this one goes for me. But so those kind of things where the things that make you go,
yeah,
that's number one. Two is meditation. I have a really basic protocol. So two is meditation. I believe in ease right now. And because I watch a lot and listen. I do that listening and like watching what moms are doing and how they're paying attention. I will never leave my midwife body. And I think the gift of a midwife is that you stand in the corner and you watch the scenario when it comes to like the nurses, everybody you see who's going to be at your birth with you, including the mom and the dad or the mom and the mom and whoever. Like you see who's going to be there, and then you plan you plan accordingly to the room in that space, no matter if it's in hospital or out of hospital. So meditation.
Do you have some meditation tips? I think that's
Headspace app. Headspace app.
Okay.
Headspace app. It's, I did the Deepak Chopra meditation app for a while, but the Headspace app it's this guy Andy, and you will fall in love with him because he has a great European voice, and you can time.
It matters so much.
Oh my God,
it really does
actually. I had a client. She's like, Andy's my boyfriend. I was like, mine too. He's my friend. So
bring you back for steady practice.
So good at
yeah. So you have to do when you download it, you have to do you get to do 10 days free. And what I love about it for busy women is that there's 5, 10, 15, 20-minute breakdowns, and I just say to moms, 5 minutes. I'm not asking you to sit down in a pose for 20 minutes to meditate. I'm saying get your 5 minutes in, so while you're waiting in the car line, for pickup, you can go up early, turn it on, do your little meditation, come back to it. His sequences, and then once you get beyond he makes you do it's very cool because he sequences you out, and once you get to a place where then you can pick and choose what you want to do for your meditation, the tools you learn for it. And as a birth professional, I will say do it because it will keep your cortisol levels down hugely. If you don't, and I had a long time meditation practice, I had probably 20 years, and it's the most consistent I've been since I was in my 20s. And I can't. It totally helps. So I also work with women on trying to feel their nervous systems. And so that is, I really believe in psychosomatic healing and psychosomatic therapy. And again, Boulder is the mecca for that Hakomi kind of psychosomatic release therapy. And so
that work.
It was something that helped me a lot, and so I talk about it. And so that's basic. If you've ever been to a therapist who's all right, you're feeling these emotions, where do you feel in your body, and they work with you through it. I teach women to start feeling their nervous systems that way, so that you can know why you're jumpy, what it's doing to, how it might be holding you back, those kind of things. So those are real, I think the food piece is big. You know, like
It's so much bigger than people even realize.
I have a client right now. I'm not really taking private clients anymore, and one just came to me because through the Kickstarter campaign, and I was like, why not? This will be fun. You know, she has this really cool tech book store in Seattle, and it's like, so I love to work with people like that because they fascinate my brain. That you can be
because they're like you.
Well, yeah. So maybe so, and there's an eagle, of course. But anyway, so she has Crohn's, and that's that's inflammation, right? So it's an autoimmune disorder, and so I say, as a midwife, give me your diet diary. So that's the thing, is I very much first visit for me is like, and this is where I think that it's important as doulas to have somebody on your team, and I mean like the collective, even like animal team, that is a midwife or a doctor that will talk to you and say, okay, I want to do a diet diary for my client. Let's say especially the postpartum doulas. Like I want to do a diet diary around 6 weeks postpartum, see what they're doing on 2 weekdays and then 1 weekend day, and see how they're like really look at how people are eating, because you'll start to see why people are really aggressive, why people are really emotional, and all that kind of stuff through their food. And we nutrition is like number one in midwifery. It's the reason why people can have out of hospital births, and again, the medical school curriculum is this much nutrition. Not even. It's this much nutrition.
Yeah.
So that is a big piece of like that calm nervous system. I could talk about it for days. So parasympathetic versus sympathetic nervous systems are like really important to like write down and say, go look at what this means, what the difference between the two are.
Yeah, I have somebody who's in Boulder that I want to connect you with.
Yeah.
Just saying it out loud so we don't forget.
Great. Awesome.
I would love to know too. Tell me your name one more time. Rebecca. So Rebecca's talking about how in your classes you're trying to prepare parents. Again, in the birth trauma work, one of the potential seeds for trauma is unrealistic expectations.
Yes.
So I think that goes through to the postpartum world too.
Right.
If you think, I mean, my mom thought she was going to wear normal clothes home from the hospital when she gave birth, 35, 40 years ago. She was like, what do you mean I don't get to wear my jeans home?
Yeah.
Like, I still look pregnant. What's going on?
Yeah.
And honestly, I think that little tiny thing planted seeds that resulted in body image issues throughout. Like, I think she still struggles with that. So how would you exhort us to gently prepare parents to start using their tool belts?
Yeah. I always say approach patiently and gently. I mean, clearly. I think that comes from, again, a lot of experience in the birth world and also being an athlete. Like, sometimes you can definitely be aggressive and go into something, but then what happens if you don't succeed? So like that's when you're asking that question, I'm like, just be patient. Like that, and allowing a conversation, you're doing it really well, and the listening. So a lot of, when I work with people, they've hired me so that I can talk a lot and educate them, but then I'm trying to find that there's like an equal space where I'm listening as well to the stories, because the stories will come. They'll be more intense later out, but they'll still come. So if you can say things like, let's step back, in the birthing from within, when you have to do the drawing in the prenatal class, where you draw your like most horrific or whatever view of, or like your scariest thing first, right?
Image of her.
Yeah, thank you. Make it sound good. So that accept the unexpected.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that
Which
actually.
is so hard though.
I know.
I think our culture sets women up to have expectations. I don't think it's wrong to have expectations. I think it's good to process what would happen if that expectation wasn't met.
Totally.
Prenatally, before they ever enter the birth room.
Yep.
Let's approach birth from a more solution approach.
Yeah.
Like, what happens when it doesn't go like
Yeah.
that? Because it didn't go like that for me.
With the
in
healthy
time.
fear and respect, like we would
But
of
I
a
think-
class 5 river.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think, here's the thing, like, women go in, they're going to have expectations. We all have hopes and dreams.
Yeah.
How do we set them up prenatally
Yeah.
so that postnatally they're walking the path out of the labyrinth, but they're not,
Well, I do the
not traumatized every
Right.
step of the way.
So prenatally, I did a lot of the conversation of a lot of the work that's transpired into the postnatal stuff. So we start, for me, at 32 weeks, I'd start saying, okay, date night this week is you guys going out on a date. And I want you to bring notebooks I want you both to each have a pen, and I want you to talk about what you love about each other. Like, what fires you up, like, and this is one of the cards in there. And like, what turns you on, like, what makes you excited, like, where did you play, like, the whole, I can say this in Colorado, if you play together, you stay together. Like, anyways, like, personal history story we're, like, running through. And that's, I think, an important thing, whatever play means to you as a couple. So that was, that activity, then they come back the next, so it's little things like that. So so again, I got the opportunity to see women, so many times towards the end of their care, and physiologically we can do that stuff in 5 minutes. Like, we can take blood pressure, we can do blood draws, we can do all that kind of stuff. So the rest of the time was spent talking to them. That's where doulas step in prenatally to help for the postpartum. So I would never have remembered that conversation postnatally when I started this work, but I sat with an old client doing market research, and she said, that one tip that you gave us to remember who we were, we wrote those things down, we both did that, and then we come back to that all the time. And they had their 5-year-old and their 3-year-old, like, living in Brooklyn when they're like Montana people, and they were displaced, all that kind of stuff, and you have to really look at your relationship in the eyes when you don't have a lot of friends. And they're like, that tip helped us stay together, because we would go back and be like, how do we play together? Or like, what do we love about each other? Because I don't love you right now. Do you know? Because that is very real too. And so I think the more real we get with our conversations, and you are going to feel, again, and this is, you're going to feel, it's like me coming here and be a little nervous to be like, I'm what, expert? Like, I'm just a person, like everybody else in this room, that has put my knowledge somewhere, And so they're going to look at you, I mean, with white deer and headlights. And
that's the thing, though. They want to talk about the postpartum. Something in them knows.
They know?
I have a whole module I do with postpartum work, and I had them actually lay out what we call the bliss list.
Yeah.
Like the things that make them happy. Because what happened to me was it took 3 years for me to find my bliss again.
Yeah.
And then I got pregnant again.
Yeah.
But to even talk about, like, you individually as a person are someone.
Yes, totally.
And you have to nurture that, but you also have to nurture your relationship. Like,
Yeah.
what are you committed to doing?
Yep.
And they're like, oh wait, it's not just with the baby. But they don't think that
Yeah.
way prenatally, most of them.
And that was a lot of my
fear is there about it.
Yeah. And that was a lot of my conversation in the first year of having my business. Was like, you are you, but you now have this baby, and you have this like advanced partnership is what I call, like, like new parents. It really is sort of an advanced partnership. And how can we, like, help you? Because you're not going to necessarily, unless you're going to go to a prenatal therapist, like, you're not, most people aren't going to go do that.
I do wonder, too, how powerful it would be to ask them about those expectations beforehand, because they may not even know, like, I'm expecting that I will be, really want to have sex once that 6-week mark happens, or I'm expecting whatever you're expecting. So maybe even asking them to vocalize those things, and then offering some potential information and tools and balance.
I love the if then what's next philosophy too, because I think for me, I don't know, I mean, I look at the pressure of social media for new moms, if you're into social media.
Unbelievable.
And and I look at, like, I've heard so many moms be like, I had to just take a break. I had to get off. And then yet the addiction side of that, like, that kind of stuff plays into the brain. I mean, really, when we look at what's happening to women at the end, it's like a lot of physiological stuff that's not taken care of, and then a lot of mental health and emotional health that's not taken care of. And that turns into a hot mess, So it's like that early preparation, being like, again, you're a newborn mom every time you give birth, So and like that conversation, what does that look like?
Yeah.
And then just be quiet and let them look at what that looks like, because once you start doing that listening, then the tool list, it's okay. Come on in. Then the tool list starts just like playing out, because all of us are going to have a different tool list. These cards, like, they help with the tool list for you guys, like, out there in the outer world, So being in that first year, even second year, there's some really flexible cards in there.
What I would love is, like, Laura runs a mother's group.
Yeah.
And I love the idea of getting older moms there, but they go back to work, and then they're not, some of them aren't home, or they feel like they don't need it. Like early on, there's something in them that's like, if I don't get support, if I don't get out, and the research shows if moms get out and they get into groups, then they're less depressed, right?
Yep.
And they have more resources.
Yep.
So how do we get the ones that are returned to work to come back, and their babies are crawling, so they're not necessarily comfortable in a baby and me yoga class,
Yep.
which is where we often as instructors get them. We
Right.
get them in the baby and me classes.
Right.
And we can kind of nurture that part of like
Right.
the healing process, but once their babies start moving, it's harder to get them back.
Well, and remembering that there's, like, this is the really interesting thing I've seen is remembering that there's a lot of women who just don't want to go there.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know? And, like, I mean, when we look at the statistics of how many women are using midwives in this country comparative to the rest of the world, we're still at around 3 to 10%, depending on what you're looking at as far as, like, the place of birth, you know? So a lot of the stuff I'm trying to do is like that, filling the gap for the 97%. Because there's no one really yet, people are catching up, but there's no one really like looking at the whole body of a woman after, in the postnatal period, publicly. And that's terrifying. When you think of like the responsibility of like, not only of the mothers as a system, and that's why some of the systems are invested, but just the women that don't, like I heard this story the other night, so I'm in Target land in Minnesota, right? And one of the Target execs went back to work 2 days postpartum, and like just
2 days.
2 days, and didn't care. Didn't care. Like, will she be a wreck in 7 months? I mean, you and I, and we can all sit here, but you and I can sit here and be like, oh yeah, like what's that world going to be like for her? And I mean, she's going to drive herself in a way that is towards exhaustion and depletion in a way that is hard to catch up with, and it will take a lot longer time. So the goal with this is like to also talk to those women in Denver, LA, New York, all those kind of places, because you guys are picking up pieces that are so important, and that will be, those women will be completely different, and they will be the ones that the community thing, like the ripple effect like I'm talking about. Again, if you can go, it's a public health model, and so if you can go into a community and affect one woman's life as a provider and a professional, then you're providing her with education, you're providing her with love, services, all that kind of stuff. And then you can say to her, as you're done with your care, you've done a really great job, I'm really proud of you, like whatever kind of mothering she needs. And then, say, I ask you that you take anything that I taught you that stands out for you when you see another mom struggling, that you sit down with her, and if she's like the Target exec, and you're like, how are you? I'm so busy, I'm so busy, I'm so busy. I love this, like, how's your heart?
Yes.
Like that question, I will do that, like, how's your heart? And it just, I had a friend do it the other day. She was texting all this, I'm so busy. I was like, so how's your heart? And she just texted, she's like, my marriage is in shambles, like, blah, 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 blah. So it was just like, it's just a real simple question. But I think I got sidetracked on that answer, but that's, so it's sort of taking them and then saying, go help somebody else. Again, then they'll go help some more people, and it's just what they've seen in tribal Africa, and it worked, and it helped. Like again, if a mom's not healthy, then the family's not healthy, and then the community's not healthy. So I mean, our job, and like what I love about these, and like thinking about doing retreats and stuff like that, is like spending a weekend, like just talking about how do you impact one woman. And you get it, and I don't know what your experience is with, like, speaking, doing multilingual and everything like that. Like, do you work with low-income women?
Yeah, primarily.
Yeah. So what's your experience? Can you share a little bit?
It runs the gamut. I have a lot of really young mothers,
Yeah.
like 15-year-olds, and then I have mothers who are on their 6th baby.
Yeah.
And it's just, some of them are prepared, some of them aren't, some of them have struggled with postpartum depression. It's not called, is it called postpartum depression when you're pregnant?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
That's, again, another undefined problem. They would like to call it, being our medical system, like prenatal depression, but it's really a precursor to postpartum depression.
Yeah. And then I see a lot of dads that are checked out.
Totally.
Like, not in it. Like off in the corner, really scared, and then I see a few dads that are in it.
Yeah.
So what else were you asking?
Well, I just wonder, so sometimes I wonder this too, because I wonder how much of this is a white person's issue, and to be honest with you, and so but then when we come to the reality of postpartum depression and whatnot, like how,
or is it a class issue?
Is it a class issue? Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
because
you're working with low income. That's a way different experience, I would imagine, than middle to upper class women,
Well,
regardless of.
Well, I think
culture.
there's a very
Separate.
different support setup.
Totally.
So, like, low-income Hispanic families usually have a big support network.
Yes.
Yeah.
They'll live with their parents.
Yes.
And so their mothers and their sisters help them raise their kids.
Yeah.
Or, you know, families, in-laws, that, not in-laws, sister and brother-in-laws, they'll live together. And so that will help with, you can sleep more as a new mom.
Yeah.
Your financial difficulties, like they are low income, but they're sharing the burden versus us, which we're like middle class, we're all alone.
Yes.
Right? And
You can't really afford
to go to a
24-hour
breastfeeding
care.
group, you need to pay $15.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
to go to yoga class, you have to pay at least 15,
Yeah.
$20 to go to yoga class. And so, while you're middle class, because you own a house in Wheat Ridge, doesn't necessarily mean you can afford $45 a week on care. And a therapist is, $100.
Yeah.
And so,
Or even if you are low income and you are seeking support, the kind of hoops you have to jump to get care is ridiculous.
It's just
because
really
no care
fascinating.
providers want to accept the low income, like even doctors.
But how ironic, in a way, so you have this low-income clientele that has, but better, in some ways,
Right.
support system than a middle to upper-class clientele.
Yeah.
In terms of support, but not in terms of necessarily financial resources.
Right.
yeah.
I think it's really so
Interesting.
varied. I mean,
It's really
we
interesting.
probably work with, I used to work at Clinic of Oficina, and there's a community health center in town here that serves most people without insurance and Medicaid, and mostly Spanish-speaking population who go to St. Anthony's North mostly in the Vista. And I would see them we did centering, so I'd see, and all kinds of things, prenatal and postpartum, as a nurse, and I felt like, you're right, there'd be that whole resource, family resource thing, but if they didn't have that, then it was like a whole other story. And then the whole piece that you were talking about, this exec going back to work after 2 days, I would see that all the time with my population.
Yeah.
They have to go to,
They have to. They
Yeah,
have
they
a
have a
choice.
choice.
Yeah.
Yes. And so as you've been talking, I've been like kind of seeing this mountain grow where I'm like, how do I really serve, that niche, that population who doesn't have the resources, who doesn't have the support, because I feel like they have that many more cards stacked against them, in this case. And then the reason I feel like it was a mounting, because I'm like, well, so much of it is systemic, where we don't have good maternity leave, and we don't have,
and totally, and that's a whole other level,
yeah,
right?
it is, and I'm just, But
so, and it's,
we have to start where we can
Totally.
to affect.
And that's a part of it, is like a lot of what I wanted to do in my transition before coming back to this was working with like people in Louisiana and places like that, because the South is a sure interest to me because of where my family comes from and the amount of maternal mortality. So maternal mortality is a huge thing that like every time I want to quit this job, I'm like, my heart just is like, no way, man. Like, women are dying in this country more than they are everywhere else in the developing world, So we're down at like whatever 60th place.
Is that? I've read it, but I'm like...
I don't think we really have a great
read
picture of why it is. I think we can blame it on C-sections and interventions and all that kind of stuff, but that's like half, like a quarter of it.
Because
Yeah.
some of the C-sections actually
Yeah. I would,
save lives.
right, well, and I would say that mostly the number one is lack of access to care. So access, that piece of, like, that's the biggest one. And, I wish that, it sounds like, I don't know if this clinic you're at, but like the one that's in Chicago, where you can't even imagine the volume that they probably do of providing care to women, but it's somewhere where underserved women are, and even overserved women, but they're coming because they know they're going to be able to sit down with somebody. And whether, like the reality of I think postnatal doulas in the future, I think, because it seems like it's still sort of a growing, correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't been in, but like a growing field.
Yes.
Is that you will do a lot more sitting and with than and kind of again doing the education piece, and that's the big other thing is lack of education, lack of access to care, and so and it's why we're gonna do like little pop-ups like this, because I can never give you like everything that's inside my brain, but like I can at least like puke it out onto some cards, and then like and like have the thing where if you guys have connections to this clinic, then or low income women or underserved women, I like to use that word, but like underserved women, then I will donate a ton of cards to that area, because I'm not gonna expect anyone underserved to pay $30 for a deck of cards, but I would definitely want them to have the access to information. So that's there's definitely gonna be that piece of it, because it's what's missing. I mean, it's what's missing, and it is systemic. And this is my only approach again to try to go from the outside.
Yeah, I feel like you gotta
go from the outside,
and
then find a hospital in each city that's willing to take on the education or the cards, and then give them to their moms. As this administrator said from this hospital in Minneapolis, she's just like, I'd much rather give them a deck of cards than a plastic cup. And I was like, I get what you're feeling. Like the sippy cup. Do you guys get the sippy cups? Like the big cup that everyone has, like the 32-ounce cup that's in everybody's freezer that has a hospital birth. So you get one if you notice that. But so I mean, what's so great about this conversation is that you understand the depth of it, right? It's still so new. A lot of people, like, I've talked to a lot of my good friends that are in marketing and stuff like that about the Kickstarter campaign. They're like, why aren't you funded? I'm like, I think it's that sort of, that's not going to happen to me. Like, and I'm like, this isn't just about this is about like, this is leaky boob issues. This is what happens if you're feeding. This is about talking about delegation with your family. Like, there's so many different levels of like how we can start taking care of moms in a way that we haven't yet.
And postpartum depression is so one-dimensional. Like you're saying, like I think people think, I don't have any issues in my family. I don't have any personal issues with any type of mood disorders.
Yep.
But that is just one teeny tiny piece
of a big picture. Yeah.
And the majority of mamas I talk to in the clinical setting or otherwise, actually, and as a doula and friends, all say, the majority say, I shouldn't say all, are like, I didn't realize I was depressed until 2 years after, or something. Like when they come out of it and look back and like, whoa, what did I just go through?
Yeah.
So there's that piece too, where I think you're right. There's this sort of, oh, that's not going to happen to me, or this like narrow definition in their minds of what it would be,
and social media just exacerbates that.
I think you're right.
Like my business partner Monet, she handles basically all our social presence, and that's her gifting. She's really good at it, but I also hate it. Like I can feel my competitive yuck like start rising up inside me when I think, oh my gosh, this mom has 3 children and she's started. And what am I doing? I'm not doing anything. I'm a horrible mom. I'm a horrible business person. So I think social media just explodes that too. So I wonder if that's something too that we could recommend. Take a little hiatus.
Yeah, coaching them just to surround yourself with what makes you feel good. You know, and that it's easy to turn it off. It's like a light switch when but it's choice and empowering them to make those choices in that moment. I work with a mom on that specific issue and say, go through your account and delete all the things that make you feel yucky. And just overnight it changed. Like you're not seeing it. It's not top of mind. Now I'm only seeing mountains and streams and things. Like if that makes you feel good. Then let's put that on your daily meditation, your little hit when you're at a stoplight. Like, let's not make it, it's up to you.
Totally. It would be nice if social media could set more realistic expectations of what depression is. Because from personal experience, I didn't realize I was depressed, and at 18 months postpartum, I was like, oh wait a minute. Was it normal?
Right.
Those thoughts of throwing myself off the bridge were not normal.
Yes.
And so you think, I always thought, depression's like you're in the gutter and you feel awful and you're sleepy and you're tired. And while I was all those things, I also was a lot of other things that I didn't think fit under the umbrella of depression. And so it would be nice if we can start to modify some of that.
And normalize it.
Yeah.
So I think that looking at the big picture, and again saying how do we normalize that story. If I was your client, I'd be like, thank you. Thank you for telling me yours. This is Kelsey she's been around social media for a long time, and she reminded me as an older woman that I was normal and to have these feelings of whatever it was, what I'm saying, and because she tells stories very beautifully, and so do you guys, and so it's I do make a lot of relationships now via social media because I'm constantly researching and I don't have a huge following, but I'm constantly looking at what people are doing, but then at the same point I have to pull back myself or whatever. But if I was your client, I totally would say thank you for that. telling me that story. I think the minute I tell people that I've lost my dad and a lover, like in a short period of time, they're like, oh, no, I can talk to you.
It's like,
do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like,
cred.
because it's like, they're like, you might not be a mom, but you understand that there's hard things in life, and because I'm having a really hard time right now, you know?
And in my prenatal classes, like, that's something that, because I teach prenatal yoga too, that's something that I do talk about, and I try not to make it as, like, scary as it can be, but I do tell them, like, if you ever have, you know, crazy dreams of pushing your stroller down the street, and you think you're going to lose your mind, I was like, come talk to me, because I've been there, you know, and I think it's scary as a mom, and all the postpartum psychosis you see, like, talked about, and, like, on the media, then you think,
and you
is
want
that
to say
me?
that's not
I always say that's postpartum psychosis, that's different.
It's a small
when you
2% of body, 1 to 2%. I'm like,
and
super
but
small.
it's, you know, like the women that have their babies in the car, like everyone finds out about that because it's like, you know, scandalous. And that's not normal either. You know, my mom was like, "Am I going to make it to the hospital?" I'm like, "You probably will. It's going to push for a while." So,
unless you stay home until like too long, and then like
right.
you have a doula that keeps you at home till like 9 centimeters. You're probably gonna have your kid.
So on that topic, how
do you deliver a baby in the car?
I have no interest in that liability.
Okay. Well, you might have to do it sometime. I literally on my flight out here, I put myself as a nurse because I was like, maybe I'll get to deliver a baby on the airplane.
So how do you bring up the fact that I had serious postpartum depression. It wasn't psychosis or anything, but I do want to bring that up without making it about me.
Yeah.
So what is a great way to say it, but not like turn it into her feeling sorry for me, or, you know, I just don't want it to become about me.
Well, I think learning to write is, I mean, we all know how to write, right? So, but picking up, but that's the thing, we're really great critics of ourselves. So I make a lot of my clients do pen to paper. I think we have our computers in front of us too much. And if we can get pen to paper, what we can get out of ourselves onto that and then put it into a platform of using it as your voice. You will realize that the more you do this here when you have emotional stuff, and this might be part of the storytelling class you did, but there's a lot of therapy and a lot of healing. Again, when we go to the psychosomatic thing, you're taking your brain, you're taking your emotions, and then you're moving your body. And you're putting it through into words, right? So you're going to figure out a lot more about your story by doing that than by talking about it. And then, but once you do this, then you can talk about it. And you can just listen to a woman and say, you know, what about having a baby makes you nervous, makes you feel scared? That conversation you're having in yoga class, you don't know how many miles it's going. And I want you to keep having it, because that is going to go miles and miles and miles and miles and miles and years and years and years and years. And and that can happen in getting a coffee. Like, the best thing about being birth professionals, you'll be next to a pregnant woman in Target, and you'll be like, what do you do? you want to know, and you like. I even sometimes I'm like, don't be invasive, and I can't help myself. And so
I guess you're not rubbing. You're totally fine.
Don't do that.
I was the only one. I was like, these people must think I'm mad and like creepy.
No, I think most people love to hear. Like when I say, hey. I mean, I think
say
every
I'm
pregnant
a birth doula instead of saying, "Hey, when do you do? How do you feel?"
I think it helps too. Like, I think every pregnant woman is so beautiful. I think it's like your wedding day type thing. I just think they're just glowing and gorgeous. So that's what I usually lead in with this. You are a really beautiful pregnant person. They're like, oh my gosh, I feel huge. Thank you so much. And I tell them I'm a birth doula, and I see tons of pregnant women, and you're a beautiful pregnant woman.
Right, and to kind of piggyback on that is that, especially with postpartum depression, I think that like what you just said is a really pivotal thing, because so many people, again, it's all about you and your beauty and your glow when you're pregnant, right? And the minute you have that baby, it's never about you. And so that's a big part of the cards is like, instead of focusing, like my friend Maddie the designer, she was like, my friend just had a baby, in this process of making all these cards and talking to me, she's like, what do? I say, you go over to her house, like uninvited, you say, I'm going to text her and say I'm coming over at 2 or whatever. And you just show up, and you don't look at, like, well, you can look at the baby. Like, you look at her, you say, how are you doing? What can I help with?
Yes.
And that's a common practice, I feel like, but it's not, we'll realize it's not that common. We go over and hold the baby, because, you want to hold the baby, right?
Yes.
But I think that piece of
Yes, I do.
really, yeah, right? You do. You're hormonal. You want it.
I want to smell your baby's head. I'm sorry, I do.
But yeah, and just I think like the writing, the transfer, and the like why like examining for yourself, because once you do the exercise, you will be able to give it to everybody over and over and over again. Why did I feel this way? Like where did my experience live? Can I identify where it was in my body? Do I have any residual energy left in my body? And get creative with it, or if you're a painter or if you're a clay artist or any kind of, or if you're a runner, like, take those things. I always say that, take it on a run, and work it out. But if you need to write something, then do that writing thing.
It's so powerful.
It is.
And it forces a certain cadence to your thoughts that like typing doesn't. Like you can type 120 words a minute, but you can't write 120 words a minute. In our birth listening class, Pam talks about letting all the archetypes in your mind speak. So the victim child, the orphan, the warrior, like identifying those, and then actually the judge. That's a big one for me. When you're writing, identifying those voices, and you'll hear your archetypes speaking to each other. And then that empowers you to hear them in someone else speaking.
And then meditation, especially with Andy.
Your boyfriend?
My lover. His wife does not like that. But
she's probably used to it.
She's definitely used to it. He takes that to another level where you actually can, you build a healthy relationship with those archetypes.
Yes.
So that judge goes away.
Totally.
And like literally you're like, oh, that's
there's the judge. Hi, judge.
Yep,
that's what
or
she says.
like, yep, and you start to transform that.
Oh,
yeah.
It's incredibly powerful.
Ancient too.
It is ancient.
Yeah.
She says, those are your child archetypes. She says they're always going to be in there. So don't think I can get rid of my judge. Your judge will always be there, but he doesn't have to drive the bus.
Yeah.
Say, get in the back of the bus, judge. Yeah. Like my love warrior's driving right now.
I like that. What was your question? You had a question, Lindsay.
You could see it. Or did I
Yeah, I don't know. You had a question.
Your aura was
No,
kind
I
of
just had a bunch of ideas. That's all.
Yes, get them going. I'm ready to write.
Well, you know how I am about birth affirmations, and like,
beautiful.
I'm really working on accepting, like, especially Tracy Ryan's respectful fear of birth. I am all about like really carefully speaking respectfully about birth and surges and using very neutral language because of just I've done birthing from within, hypnobirthing. I've had really beautiful, graceful births that I've attended and then my own. And I just know that we all have really different stories. And some of our stories are more dramatic and some of our stories are less. And there's a lot of things that, there's a big range there. And so I just have this thing that comes up for me that I just want to help people with that vision of what they do want or what it could be, and just the trust that your child will come forth in this perfect time, whether it's at 38 weeks or 42 weeks or 42 plus 3 days or whatever happens. But then also that acceptance around it's going to come in the perfect space and time, and even if that is in the OR or here in the birth center or in your home, and just all those different spaces. But I guess what was coming up for me was just that deck idea of those affirmations, so that some of our wellness can really be dealt with in those prenatal classes and with those different archetypes that are coming up, whether it is the judge or the warrior. And
well, if we had more prenatal care, we wouldn't have so much postpartum issues.
So
that's the reason why midwifery care is. If we wouldn't be 60th for maternal mortality rate. So this is my beat around the bush of and all of you too are very much part of my the system that we run in of making sure that in time outcomes change because women are taken care of earlier and with more access. And number one answer of what will improve our health overall.
Right. But I just was envisioning some of your words and some of your birth from within words coming together as this other deck and then my other
I'll take it. Do you want proprietary let's spend money on this? Let's talk deals. I got the business side too. But I think it's funny because one of the psychologists that did the review for me, she and I talked about doing and there are affirmation cards throughout. They're quotes, but then on the other side there's still tips, you know, and like one of them is the one, you'll see it a lot on the Kickstarter page, but it says something like, my friend came over one day, she has 2 toddlers, and she and her husband were struggling, and she just started bawling, and she said, being mom's hard, you know, like, nobody tells you that shit. And I was like, can I write that down? Can I take that? Can I make a card out of that? And then literally I just got her kind of drunk, cooked food for her, and then Taylor Swift's song, you know, Shake It Off, had just been released, and I was like, there's a song you needed to listen to. She just went to town, you know, but that became something, because giving someone who is in a place where shit's hard, you know, giving them some way to get out of their cortisol body and get into more of an oxytocic body, then you're going to be doing a lot of service to them. So there's a book that you guys all probably want to read, and but her last name's McGonigal, and I talk about it a lot, but it's called The Upside of Stress. And it really, if you think you know a lot about oxytocin, you will have your mind blown. She blew my mind as a midwife, and it is a brilliant book on oxytocin and how we can use stress towards our advantage versus thinking of it as a nemesis. And
you do know those people, that can be, especially in the athletic world, that may be the tipping point that either crushes someone's athletic prowess or empowers them to be a super athlete.
And a lot of the work that I'm encouraging you guys to do is teach women to have their own healthcare system, period.
Yes.
So we will thrive as a society and a culture by creating our own little healthcare systems. And so every family's going to be different. Everyone's going to have different access to income and resources and all that kind of stuff. But if we can, again, the mom creates the little healthcare system for the family. And so that is how it is. But once you get your health dialed, then everybody around you will, you'll influence people. You know, you become an influencer, and then again, your kids will be well, your husband or wife will be well, and all that kind of stuff, and you will just live a different life. You know, because we don't think that way. That's fine.
I was going to say, there's a quote that I heard recently that was, "Mothers make the weather." I was thinking about it. And it stuck with me because I'm like, you're right. It's the whole idea of mom ain't happy, no one happy.
Yeah. But way better and less annoying way to say it. I'm do not show me that sign.
I know, you're romantic. I know. And it also
it's like my button.
We're
art shows.
Can I just say something about talking to women? I think it's really hard because they want to know how to relate to you, but at the same time, it connects you. But I always have to ask the question, and I had to do it the other day too, in my class in front of a bunch of people. You have to wonder what part of my story will be helpful to you.
Yeah.
Because is it helpful for you to know how my birth outcome went, or would it be more helpful for you to know that some women experience this? A lot of you aren't alone, because just your experience doesn't necessarily help them, but if they know they're not alone, that it's really common for women to feel that way. And so that's how I respond is, you know, myself included, but it's very common for women to feel this way or this way about it, and all is normal. There's no right or wrong. Your path is your path, but there are a lot of women who feel this way, and this is how they cope with it.
That's kind of the approach I take, but then, you know, they want to dig in a little bit, and they often ask questions like, well, what was it like for you? And at that point, I'm always like, well, I don't want to scare you. You know, I don't want you to carry my baggage home with you.
Well, don't talk about it being scary then.
Yeah.
Maybe just say, for me, I felt this deep experience, and this is what I did.
It kind of was scary for me.
Yeah.
So, you know, I have to deal with that before I can give somebody else my experience without it being a little scary.
And the reality is that if you're a happy person, so for me, for instance, it's literally born under a happy sign, really clear that that's just who I was born to be. To feel as depressed as I felt, not only to have sleep deprivation, I'm going to say this, to then want to eat shitty because you're sleep deprived. You want to eat shitty when you're sleep deprived. So then to layer that on with then death, love, death. You know, so if I look at that as a clinician, I'm like, that is a recipe for disaster.
Totally.
You know, so but I'm so pig-headed that I was like, therapy, meditation, running, yoga, I'm going to do whatever I can do. I don't have kids. You know, so I'm blessed and lucky that I could get through that deep, dark period with that, without having to manage a family. So to have to manage a family when you're going through that, it's physically, I'm going to say that, almost impossible. So I think that, I'm really an advocate for the real raw, and that's who I attract, is the real raw, and because I'm not going to powder coat anything or fluff it up.
Can we have a retreat?
Yeah,
for sure. Seriously, we're already planning it.
There's
no
3
joke.
rooms.
I know. We're not going to give birth. Sorry, guys. We're gonna go
I'm thinking Estes Park or Vale or something.
Let's go to Dutton.
A cord retreat.
Let's go to Dutton. I'm sorry. I'm just joking.
Panhandle, Oklahoma is beautiful this time of
No,
year.
Dutton Hot Springs. Down by Telluride.
Oh, I was like, Dutton, Texas. We are not.
I'm an old Telluridean, so it was so expensive.
Dutton Hot Springs.
Yeah, it'd be close for us.
It would be.
But
Seriously.
anyway,
Sorry, we're planning vacation.
So how do we find you? I'm gonna.
Yeah, no, so I can.
Concrete.
Well,
how do we find you?
Yeah.
Do you have your cards, Kickstarter?
Yes,
all that?
I do.
And I'm going to send out an email with contact info, and if you're good, if you're okay with that.
Oh, please.
Contact info
Yeah.
and websites
Maybe.
and Kickstarter. We're going to push on our site, on Cord. We're going to push Kickstarter next week.
Thanks.
I mean, we are...
It needs to be funded.
This is the
thing. So if you know anyone who has like investor level I do. I've got 4 people on I've already got 5 people on who are like investor level status. I've said to them, hold your horses.
Yes.
Because what I'm trying to do with this is if we could generate 1,000 people in a week that are back at $1, I would be so elated, because that means to me that it's pre-orders.
1,000 people
Again, I
who
think
know
in business terms, but I'm thinking as like looking at the big picture, and then it's 1,000 women having this. When the hospital came to me and said 10,000 women could go home with this next year, I was like, yes, because like that to me is like what I want to do is like, this is really effective for us. But look at how, so there's 10, so we can do the math. We could eventually, through our work over time, reach 10,000 to 1 million women because there's 10 of us, right? We just do the math. But can we do this quicker and more exponentially? Yeah, and that's the thing. So it's like, there is, she'll send that out.
Yeah,
but just
totally.
like, I'm just having to come to a real place where like this is about building community. I talked to Every Mother Counts yesterday, and so it just feels very ironic that we're here in Every Mother Countsville. I know. I took a picture and sent it to him. So, and they said to me like, why Kickstarter? And I said, because I asked an investor, and she said, I want you to go big. I want, like, not go big, that's my ego, but, like, I want you to get onto a different platform that raises you up, because my platform was still small. And if I tried to shout this from the top of a building with a small platform, without people just looking at the video even, like, you're not going to go that far. Just 3 weeks of doing this has done this. I could have contacted you guys for months, and they're getting contacted a lot. So it was just a random opening in the universe.